Welcome to Dads and Dollars podcast with your host, Stanley Funches, certified financial planner, business owner, author, speaker, and father of three. Listen as Stanley shares his valuable insights around fatherhood and finances gained from over 20 plus years of experience. You'll hear stories, lessons learned, and the ups and downs he and his guests have encountered on their journeys as fathers, professionals, and business owners. These shared lessons will help provide you a path for financial independence while celebrating the challenges of being a dad. Thank you for joining the conversation. Here's your host, Stanley Funches.
Good day. Welcome to Dads and Dollars, the podcast where fatherhood and finance are woven into everyday life topics. My name is Stanley Funches. I'm a certified financial planner by profession and a father of three in this thing called life. We're glad you can join us for season 1, episode 6. In this episode, we're going to discuss 401k plans and the dangers of those water cooler discussions that you all are having at work. And we'll finish up talking about how as parents we think about funding the rising cost of education for our children. So let's begin today's show and let's discuss 401ks and retirement plans. So in episode 2, I discussed cash. And what I've learned is that that's a foundational topic when it comes to financial planning. And it's one of the places where people make a good bit of mistakes. That same thing is true for 401k. So if you hadn't listened to episode 2, go back and listen to episode 2 because it's very foundational in financial planning and wealth creation. But 401ks is the next topic that I wanted to talk about. And it's about the use of the 401k plan, but also the lack of use of the 401k plan as well. So what is a 401k plan? Many of you may have one at work and you might not really know what it is, but 401k plan, 403b, 457 plan, those are really just tax codes. And so it allows you to put money into your own retirement. And so the history of 401k plan is, I think it was in the on the tax code in about the 60s or 70s. That's when it first got put into the tax code, but it didn't become prevalent until the 80s in the Reagan administration. And in those times, the emphasis was trying to grow corporate earnings, right? To try to see how can we make companies more profitable. So there were tax cuts. And one of the things that happened is more people started to adopt the 401k plan, to start the use of it. And what it did was it replaced pension plans. So if you can kind of think about whether it's your grandparents, your great-grandparents, typically, 70 years ago, if you worked on a job, you worked for 35, 40 years, you got the gold watch, you got a pension check. So the worker was not necessarily responsible for saving for their retirement. The company was. Well, with a 401k plan, that switched. No longer was the company taking the risk of investment portfolio or the risk of funding the 401k plan. The pension plan. So the companies did not take the risk of, hey, look, we have to fund X number of dollars each year in this pension plan, and we have to hope that it grows by a certain amount. So they had to take the management risk of it when they had pension plans, and they also had to take the funding risk of the pension plan. So that was a lot of pressure on companies. And there was a lot of pressure on the earnings and the variability of the earnings. So the 401k plan came along and companies started adopting and using it. And basically that risk became something that the employee had to take on, meaning that now I have to save for my retirement and I have to manage the investment risk. So that's what the 401k plan is. That's how it came into existence. And now the onus is on you as the worker, the employee, to save for your own retirement. So how does it work? How does a 401k plan work? So when you see the literature and you say, gosh, you got to sign up for this, what you do is you put money in from your payroll. You never really get to see it, which is a really good way to save. You never get to see it, and it goes into an account that you can use for investment strategies. Now that money it goes in on a before tax basis. And it gets to grow what we call tax deferred. So if it does grow, it will grow tax deferred. meaning that you won't pay taxes as the money. If you put $10 in and then 30 years from now, that $10 is worth $50, that $40, you don't pay taxes along the way. But you do pay taxes when you retire and you start taking distributions. So you'll pay whatever your tax rate at that time, whatever the tax laws say, you'll start paying taxes later. So it allows your money the ability to be put in without taxes taking out and potentially grow without taxes being taken out. Now, there are, in the last few years, there are many more companies who adopted the Roth 401k portion, where you put money in on an after-tax basis. You've already paid taxes on it. It goes into the account, and it can potentially go tax-free. So when you get to retirement, you'll be able to take that money out tax-free. So that's the Roth. Now, along the way, you also get the ability to, if your company provides it, a match. So if I put $1 in, maybe my company will put $1 in. So that means $2 goes into my retirement bucket. So the 401k gives you the ability to save more your money for retirement, not to have that money taxed today, but taxed later. And you can potentially get a match, or you can pay taxes on it now if you have the Roth 401ks and it grows tax-free. So that's how it works. And so why should we use it? Why should we use a 401k plan? Well, one of the reasons, according to the 2020 Retirement Confidence Survey summary report, 27% of Americans feel very confident that they have enough for retirement. Now, so 27% feel confident, and 73% that don't. So 3/4 of the people out here pretty much aren't sure they're going to have enough money for retirement. And that's because, Social Security is not covering most people's expenses today. And I would venture to say 25, 30 years from now, even maybe 10 years from now, especially the way the government, the Social Security is structured today, as well as inflation, I don't see Social Security being a big part of everybody's retirement income. So the money you save is going to be important. So again, only 27% of Americans right now feel very confident they have enough. So you need to use it so that you could feel more confident by putting your own dollars in. You accumulate dollars within the 401k plan that you would hopefully use later for retirement income to help supplement whatever you get from Social Security or any other sources if you do happen to have a pension plan. So you are saving now to hopefully accumulate for later. That tax deferred and tax-free growth is another reason why you should use it. You get some tax advantages with the 401k, and you should use that as, that leverage of the government not taking either money now or taking money later from you. It's an efficient way to grow your net worth. We're all talking about how to build assets over time. And this is an efficient way to do it because, again, it doesn't have that taxation. You're saving automatically. So you're not going to get the opportunity to spend it. So it's an efficient way to do it. Same way some people want to build assets and net worth within real estate or businesses. Some use all three. Some use 401k, some use real estate, some use business. It gives you another reason. It gives you ability to participate in the stock market. So you have investment options that we'll talk about a little later that you can choose from within your 401k plan. So it's one of the ways that most people access the market. And then lastly, it's free money from your employer. So if your employer does do matching, that's free money. So those are reasons why you should use it. Now, there are some people who don't have employers, they're business owners. And if you're a business owner, you have options such as the Simple Plan, IRA plan, the SEP plan, the 401k plan, the cash balance plan. And I would just simply tell you, sit down and talk to your advisor, your tax advisor, and figure out which one of those plans would be best for you, because the same principles apply. You should save money for retirement, and you should use a plan to do it. So it helps you have money outside of your business. Most business owners, their net worth is their business. They don't have anything to diversify. So it allows you to save money in a tax advantage way outside of your business. So it's something you should really consider. Now the cost obviously You got costs for administration. You have costs of matching your employees. You have other responsibilities with plan. Evaluate whether that's worth it for you. And again, we probably end up having another podcast in the future about small business retirement plans, but you should definitely consider it. And also, you may get some tax credits when you set up the plan. So there are tax credits that are out there that you may get for initial startup plans. So you, again, talk to your tax advisor about that. So I mentioned earlier those water cooler mistakes. So for everybody who has a 401k plan or interested in starting one, what are those water cooler mistakes that I see that people are doing? One is they just don't put enough in because they're sitting around talking to their fellow employees and coworkers, and they say, "Hey, how much you're putting in for your plan?" Well, we only get matched 4%, so that's what I'm going to put in. So they don't put enough because they had these discussions. They think the match is the optimal amount to put in. But a 2020 Vanguard study showed that the average contribution is 7%. And only 22% of the people are saving more than 10% of their salary. So there are not many people who are saving more than 10% into the 401k plan. So notice we went to saying that 27% of the people feel comfortable with where they are retirement wise. I wonder how many of those 27 are these same 22% who are saving 10% or more. The maximum amount that you can save in 2022 is $20,500 within the 401k plan. So you should really, people aren't putting enough. That's the maximum. They should be looking at trying to put 20,500. And if you're over 50, 27,000. I know some of you are probably saying, "Man, Stanley, I only make $50,000 a year. I'm not going to put $20,500 in a 401k plan." Well, you should at least put 15%. Especially if you're in your 40s, as early as you can do it, the most you can put in, the better. But you should be at least trying to put about 15% in your 401k plan, moving up, or have a plan developed so you can get there. And if you're putting 15% and your employer is matching you 4%, then guess what? That's 19. You're saving almost 20% of your income. So I would tell you, if you can't make the 20,500 or the 27,000 your target number because of where you are salary wise, you should be looking at the percentage and say, "Hey, I have to have a plan that I'm contributing 15% consistently." So if you're a 7 or 8, that should be your plan to get there. So not putting in enough is one of the first mistakes. The other mistake is the short-term investment mentality. And what I mean by that is, you get your statement, you look at it, and you say, "Okay, the market is down. I am going to get out. I'm going to get out the market. The market is down." And then you look at your statement and you go, "Oh my gosh, the market is up. I need to put more money in." You're just looking at this short period of time and you're making your assessment of whether this market is good for you or not. And I would tell you that's a losing strategy. So we don't want to have that, "Hey, I'm going to look at my statement and I'm going to go buy high. And then when the market is down, I'm so panicked that I'm selling low." Losing strategy, the 401k is not going to do what you wanted to do long term with that approach. Another mistake that people make is the consistency in their contributions, right? And it's almost the same. Like, all right, oh my gosh, the market's down. I'm not putting any more money in this thing. I'm going to change my contributions to 0. It's not worth it because it feels like I'm losing money. Well, the market being down is actually the time, that may give you the opportunity to grow more by buying things at cheaper prices. So maybe not contributing will hurt you in the long run. And then vice versa. Market is up. Everybody say, "Oh gosh, I got to put more money in this 401k plan. I need to be in the market now. I need to buy." Again, that's that buy high, sell low mentality. So what you want to do is figure out how much you can afford, keep contributing, and do it consistently. And then increase it 1%. So consistently increase it to 1% a year. But that consistency is another area that we see as a water cooler mistakes or lack of consistency. All the investments are concentrated in one thing, whether it's I'm being really, really conservative and I want to have this cash account or this bond account, or I want to be really, really aggressive and or I just don't know. I have some clients who sometimes have TSP accounts, which thrift savings plans, which are the federal government version of 401k plans, and they were like, "Hey, I'm so conservative. I'm so conservative. I'm scared of the stock market. I don't want to be involved in the stock market." But what tends to happen is I look at their statement and I say, "Gosh, you got 75% of your money in the C fund, which is basically the market index that follows the market." And so they are way more aggressive than they wanted to be. And so that's one of the things that we see that are water cooler mistakes, because somebody told them, "Hey, put your money in this fund," and they really didn't know, but they thought that they were being really, really conservative. So, when you're looking at your investments, you want to kind of figure out what your allocation, what your goals are, and then maybe sit down with a professional and make sure you have the allocation set up for your goals and your risk tolerance. Another area people make mistakes in is premature withdrawals and distributions. So whether it's loans or is taking a distribution out of the plan is a mistake. Sometimes it's just you just got to do it. It's not you don't have an option of choices. But what we want to do is build your financial life in a way that option is maybe your fourth option or fifth option and not the first option. So again, go back to episode 2. Go back and listen to it, because that's where cash helps you. That's where cash, having the appropriate amount of cash, helps you keep your money invested, so you're not making this water cooler mistake of taking a premature distribution or loan. All right. So another thing about 401k plans, and many of you may have, left employment and went to another job. One of the things I would tell you too is when you leave your job, you'll have options, and you need to consider what those options would be. You could take the money out of your 401k plan, which would be another mistake, and actually spend it. So if you take it out of the plan to spend it, you get in your name, get in your checking account, and you actually spend the money, and not roll it over into another qualified plan, then you have possible 10% taxes depending on your age, as well as a tax penalty, and then you'll have taxes you'll have to pay on that money. So there'll be shrinkage on that dollars. So if you don't have to have the money, which I hope you wouldn't have to, you take that money and you can make a decision on whether you keep it there in the plan. So as long as you have over $5,000 in the plan, you can keep it in your current or your former job's plan. So that's one of the options for you. Or you can roll it into your new employer's plan. So you can take it from one 401k and roll it into your newer plan, and that will avoid taxation. Another option you can do is, if you have a trusted advisor or some type of self-directed option that you wanted to control, you can take the money and you can roll it from your 401k, your former 401k, and roll it into an IRA. And you can do that as many times as you want. You can take different plans from different former employers and roll them into an IRA. And as long as you roll them into an IRA, you don't have any taxes that you would have to pay at that time. It's a tax deferred rollover as well. But when you do that, you need to consider that there are additional fees that may be there if you roll over as well. There are some people see a lot of benefits in that because you have some control by having it in an IRA, but you sit down and talk to your financial advisor or professional, and you can sit down and assess whether that's best for you. But those are some options that you have when you leave an employer with your 401k plan. Other options to save for retirement: you got IRAs, you got savings account, non-qualified mutual funds. You should be saving somewhere for your own retirement. But today we were talking about 401k plans. We think that that's one of the best options, one of the more efficient options that you should use as a building block for your financial health, wealth, and net worth. So recap of the next steps: get information on your 401k plan. Do that soon if you haven't. If you haven't signed up, do so. And if you have, make sure you're doing at least the match, okay? Because that's free money. So make sure you're doing at least a match. Now, if you can, max out your 401k plan as soon as possible. If you can max it out today, which is the $20,500 if you're under 50, and if you're over 50, it's $27,000. If you can max it out, great. Do it as soon as possible. Or at least do a minimum of 15% of your pay. All right. And if you're not at 15% now, then make a commitment that every year you're going to raise it up a little bit as you get raises to get to that 15%. Set an investment goal and a game plan is your next step. Set an investment goal and a game plan. Know what your risk tolerance is. Know what your time frame for investing is. So that way, you're not being dictated by what the market whims may do, but you have a game plan that you can be consistent to. Check your current allocation. If you need to adjust it, please do. Talk to a professional and do that. Be consistent and steady in your contributions and your plan. Okay. And if you're a business owner, start one for you and your employees as soon as you're able to. All right. So if you're a young employee, young business owner, start a 401k now. If you're older, you need to have started that yesterday. So you might as well start now too. All right, so we're gonna let's take a moment and let's talk about, as parents. I mean, kids' education. We want our kids to achieve as much as they can in life, and education is a very key for many kids, whether it's education through a college level, trade school, or even life experiences to a certain extent. But right now we're talking about, hey, if once the child graduates from high school, they want to go get some other form of formal education, whether again trade school or college. How do we think about that as parents? Look, I think this has been a major challenge over the last 35 plus years with the rising cost of education, and I think it's going to be even more so in the next 35 years. So I just met with a client just recently, and we discussed, they have 3 kids, and we're discussing college education planning and how to prioritize for them. And we were talking about their 3-year-old. And we looked at the numbers for a public in-state school in Texas. The projected total cost will be over $300,000 when it's time, when they're done funding the education, if they wanted to cover the full cost of a public school education. And so I think when we all looked at that, we kind of took a step back and was like, okay, given all their other goals and objectives, how realistic is this? They have daycare, they have activities now, they're trying to live now. Even though one parent's a doctor and the other's a school teacher, I mean, these are competing things that they have, that even though they have resources, they don't have an infinite amount of resources. So we have to plan for all these different goals. And so that was very, eye-opening for them. So then we have to decide, like, how do we do this? How do we balance life now, retirement later, and college education? So in this portion of the episode, I'm not talking about solutions, like what you should do as far as where you should put your dollars. This is more of like, let's talk about the goal of education and setting a realistic goal and having the conversations that are needed, so that you'll know what path you want to be on. Because there are several challenges, and what my clients see as challenges are, because many of my clients are first generation wealth builders, and so I know even people who are not necessarily first generation wealth builders may have some of these same challenges, but most of my clients are first generation wealth builders, and they have a goal of not having their kids be in the same position they were in when they got their education. They don't want their kids to be saddled with student loans, not starving for meals, not having to work multiple jobs to self-fund. They don't want those things for their kids. And so that is their goal, and what we're talking about as far as a challenge for them. They want them to have a leg up when they finish school too, and not be burdened by debt. Another challenge for them is that the parents just might not agree on what that goal should be and how they should actually fund that goal. One parent may have a different experience than the other parent. One parent may say, hey, gosh, my mom and dad paid for everything for me, and I want to do that same thing for my child. And another one may say, well, I had to work 2 jobs, and then I had to work 3 jobs, and I had to get this student loan. I had to work and it was good for me, and it'll be good for them. They may come from different areas but they're coming together now and decide what they're going to do for their kid. And that's a challenge to figure out, okay, let's get everybody on the same page. And, unless you're Elon Musk or Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos, that we all have a finite amount of resources, which brings about another challenge. We got a finite amount of resources and we have multiple goals. So how are we going to take care of education when we still got to do retirement and we got to live today? They don't know where to start in their goal setting, which is a challenge. So trying to figure out where to start there is really important. So one of the clients I've had for nearly 15 years, he was different. He knew where he wanted to start in his goal setting. His dad had a sacrifice and paid for his brother and sister's education, but his dad was then in the 70s and didn't have any assets at all. But my client recognized the sacrifice that his father had did for them. He valued it so much so that when he got out of college, he came immediately to a financial advisor and said, hey, I love my dad. I thank him for everything he's done for us, but I don't want to be in that position when I'm older. So we started planning when he was 26, 27 years old for not only his retirement, but for when he had kids. So a few years later, he started having kids. And I can tell you, he has his plan. He wants to do the same thing for his kids that his dad did, but he started very early. He started with a game plan, with an insight. He knew what his goals were, and he's been going at it so great. And so what I would tell you, wherever you are in time right now, that following that example of defining what it is important for you, and then starting would be a great thing, things you should focus on. Now, what are some of those things you consider as you making your goal? Is what your financial priorities are today, and what you think they might be in the future. We don't know what the future may hold, but you got to start thinking about that as you begin to make your goal. Where are you saving now? And do you have excess cash flow today? Very important. You need to look at that as you're assessing your goal, because if you don't necessarily have excess cash flow today, then you need to figure out how to create some, cutting back, because either you're going to have to do that now or you're going to have to do it later with the kids' education when kids' education comes up. So you need to start thinking about that now. Now, you need to also consider that there are many ways to fund education, but there's only a few ways that you're going to be able to fund your retirement. So you have to keep that in consideration too as you make your priorities, because I do have some clients say, hey, well, I don't want to be in such a position that I fund all of their education and then they have to take care of me when I'm retired. So you have to think about that. So define your goal now. Don't wait. Okay. So if you want to do public school, private school education, let's go ahead and figure out what that cost is today, just like we did with my client. We figured out that the number is $300,000. Then you can work from there. You want to do in-state, out-of-state, figure that out now. What you want to prepare for is not necessarily what the kid wants to do, because you don't know that, especially if they're young. If they're 2, 3 years old, you don't know, but it is what you and your partner or spouse wants to do. Like, what is it that you guys want to be able to say you provided public school, private school, in-state, out-of-state? Do you want to pay for all, half of or do you want to do some of the amount? Give it a lot of thought. Again, what you want to, now, whatever you decide, here's another big thing right now. Whatever you decide, stick to the plan. Okay. What I don't want you to do is say, hey, you know what? I don't want to pay for anything with my kids' education. Well, let's say even more. I want to pay for half of it. And then you're committed to 10 years. You're just preparing for half. You figured out what the cost would be. You figured out how much you're going to save. You sacrifice and save. You put it in the right places. You get there. It's time for them to go to school. And now you want to pay everything. Okay. you prepare for half, but now you want to pay everything. So now your whole plan is, oh, I'm gonna take some money from my retirement, I'm gonna take some money from my emergency reserves, I'm gonna take money from cash flow, I'm gonna work a little bit longer. You're gonna change all your goals now, when all you had to do was prepare for the right way and be true to yourself or what emotionally you're going to be able to accept and be happy with. And so, again, I want you to define that goal. I want you to talk about it with you and your partner and figure out, okay, what's this goal that we're going to be committed to and happy with, so that the day that Jane or John goes to school, that I'm going to write this check and I'm going to be okay. And whether it's half, whether it's all, whether it's 1/3, whatever that number is, I'm going to be okay with it. So you can start planning and putting money and be committed, because we don't want you to get in the future where you're now changing and you're now compromising other goals. So stick to your plan. And so all of this is, I mean, this is Dads and Dollars. So I talk about my experience. So here's what we have. So I have 3 kids. My daughter just finished college. I have one who's halfway there, and I got one who's about to enter after next year. So me and their mom, my former wife, when we started to have kids, we kind of started to think about what we could do for education. Now, we were both getting MBAs. She was getting her PhD. I was building a financial planning practice. So you can imagine, if you ever had anyone that you know who's getting a PhD in business and who's starting a financial planning practice and going to school and doing other things, while having 3 kids, there wasn't a lot of cash laying around. So we had to really kind of figure out what were those priorities. So once their mom graduated from and got her doctorate degree, the university system that she worked in, was professor in, they would give 50% off on tuition. So that gave us the idea, when we started goal planning, or what we wanted to provide for the kids. And what we decided was that we were going to do the cost of a university within the system. So we told the kids, hey, you go to any university within this system, we have you. We're going to pay for that. Okay. So they did 50% tuition. We would pay the other 50% tuition plus books, room and board, and those things. So we developed that plan, and then we began to articulate the plan to our kids. We basically set their expectation of what it would be. Now, in a perfect world, if we'd have been flush with cash and investments and other assets, because we too are first generation wealth builders. If we'd have been flush with cash, we probably would have paid 100% of private universities. Both of us went to private school, private colleges. We probably would have paid 100% of all our kids. However, that wasn't our reality. So we had to deal with where we were. And so we began to tell our kids that, hey, look, if you attend that university, in a university within the system, then it's what you get. Now, if they decided to go somewhere else, we would give them the equivalent of what that would have been at the university here in Alabama. Okay. So what ended up, and that their responsibility would be to make up the difference, whether that be in scholarships, whether that be working, whether that be loans. They had to figure out what the other options would be if they desired to go to a school outside of that system. Now, where we are right now, the kids we've been able to, with 2 of them, we've been able to stick to that. They've either gotten scholarships or, if they wanted to go outside, or they went to a school within the system. So that was our plan. That's how we focused on it. That's how I would advise everyone to focus on it, meaning that do what you can and set your goals in a realistic way, something that you could be committed to and be okay with, and communicate that to your kids. So, because with all these competing goals of high cost of education, you need to have a plan. So again, to crystallize, for you to get your goals, sit down and prioritize what's important for you right now as far as education. Set a goal that both parents can emotionally stick to. Communicate the goals and expectations to your kids, and then begin saving for that goal. And so prayerfully, then your kids can get the education that they wish, and you can be content with the support you provided without risking other areas of your financial future. All right, that's it for this episode of Dads and Dollars. Thank you for joining us. If you got any helpful information from this episode, please share it, rate us, and review us, and give us 5 stars. Anything less than 5 stars, we're going to have to treat you like Walona treated Bookman on Good Times. Yep. So talk to you next time.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Dads and Dollars. If you found the information shared today valuable, please share with your friends and family via your social media. If you have a request for a future financial topic for Dads and Dollars, please email us at ask@dadsanddollars.com. For further information on your financial journey, you may purchase The Quest for Financial Independence, 10 Areas of Your Financial Planning You Should Not Ignore, by visiting our website, dadsanddollars.com. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Individual tax and legal matters should be discussed with your tax or legal professional. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. All performance reference is historical and is no guarantee of future results. Traditional IRA account owners have considerations to make before performing a Roth IRA conversion. These primarily include income tax consequences on the converted amount in the year of conversion, withdrawal limitations from a Roth IRA, and income limitations for future contributions to a Roth IRA. In addition, if you are required to make a required minimum distribution, RMD, in the year you convert, you must do so before converting to a Roth IRA. Asset allocation does not ensure a profit or protect against a loss. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of these strategies. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. Guests and their companies are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Intellis Advisory Group. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, SIPC. Advisory services offered through Intellis Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Intellis Advisory Group and Intellis Wealth Management are separate entities from LPL Financial. thank you for joining us for this episode of Dads and Dollars. If you found the information shared today valuable, please share with your friends and family via your social media. If you have a request for a future financial topic for Dads and Dollars, please email us at ask@dadsanddollars.com. For further information on your financial journey, you may purchase The Quest for Financial Independence, 10 areas of your financial planning you should not ignore by visiting our website, dadsanddollars.com. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Individual tax and legal matters should be discussed with your tax or legal professional. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. All performance reference is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of these strategies. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. Guests and their companies are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Intellis Advisory Group. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, SIPC. Advisory services offered through Intellis Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Intellis Advisory Group and Intellis Wealth Management are separate entities from LPL Financial.